Dear students, now let us learn active and passive voice. What is active voice? What is passive voice? First of all, what is a voice? Right? So let us know the definition. A voice is the form of a verb. A voice is the form of a verb which tells whether the subject is doing an action, whether the subject is doing an action, or whether the subject is receiving an action. Whether the subject is doing an action or receiving an action in a sentence is called voice of the word or voice. Voice of the word or voice. Once again, the form of a verb which tells whether the subject is doing an action or receiving an action in a sentence is called voice of the verb or voice. Now, what is active voice? Right? In a sentence, if the verb shows that the action is done by the subject, then it is said to be in an active voice. Right? Let us see here. Active voice, when the subject of the sentence is the doer. When the subject of the sentence is the doer of the action, means performer of the action, and denoted by the verb. Denoted means shown by the verb. In a sentence, if the verb shows that the action is done by the subject, then the sentence is in active voice. Then the sentence is in active voice. In a sentence, if the verb shows that the action is done by the subject, then it is said to be in active voice. Most of the active voice sentences will be in a tense structure. Right? For example, let us see here. Parents love their children. Parents is the subject. Verb. Love is the verb. And their children is object. Their children is object. So here, parents love their children. The verb denotes, tells that the action of love is done, or the performer is the subject. Then the sentence is said to be in active voice. Then the sentence is said to be in active voice. Are you clear, my dear students? Now let us see what is passive voice. What is passive voice? Right? So when the subject of the sentence is the receiver, when the subject of the sentence is the receiver of the action, denoted by the verb. Denoted means shown by the verb. Then it is said to be in the passive voice. Then it is said to be in the passive voice. In a sentence, if the verb shows that the action is received by the subject, then it is said to be in passive voice. Now let us see here. Example. Children are loved by their parents. Children are loved by their parents. In active voice, what you have seen? Parents love their children. So children are loved by their parents. The meaning is same. Right? So, but the performer of the action and receiver of the action is most important here, and they remain in the same tense. So, when we change active voice into passive voice, we need to go through few changes. Right? The subject of the active voice becomes object of the passive voice. The object of the active voice becomes subject of the passive voice. Subject of the passive voice. So, here if you observe here, there is a preposition by. Preposition by. So, here there is a note. The subject of the verb in the active voice is made the object of the verb in the passive voice and is introduced with the preposition by. And is introduced with the preposition by. Right? So do you understand, my dear students? So we hear parents love their children. Children are loved by their parents. Children are loved by their parents. So now we have to understand here is that why to write a sentence in active voice, why to write a sentence in a passive voice. What is its importance? That is what is most important. Keep in your mind, my dear students, when we use active voice, we give importance to the subject, to the doer of the action, to the doer of the action. Who performed the action is most important in an active voice. Right? So, to the receiver of the action, we don't give much importance. To the doer, performer of the action, we give much importance. And in the passive voice, we give importance to the receiver of the action. Receiver of the action, not who performed the action that much. Alright, so we use passive voice mostly when we are discussing history. For example, the war was fought over gold. The war was fought over gold. And also, we use passive voice when we want to give much importance to the receiver of the action, and sometimes when we do not know the performer of the action. For example, my purse was stolen. My purse was stolen. Without the preposition by, also we can frame passive voice sentences. When you travel somewhere, my dear student, just observe through the window of your bus and so on the roadsides, you will see different statements in passive voice and so on. When you go to the schools, reputed schools, what will be pasted on the gates? Admissions are closed. Admissions are closed. Right? When you go to any recharging center, coupons are sold. Coupons are sold. Right? So like that you will find so many different statements in passive voice. So how to transform a active voice into passive voice? What are the rules we need to keep in our mind? Just we will see. Now let us know few rules, my dear students. Some important points. Right? Important points to change a sentence from active to passive voice. What are the points we need to keep in our mind? First, to transform from active voice to passive voice. Number one, it changes the function of the subject and the object. What is it? Active voice changes the function of the subject and the object. Alright, this is the function of the subject and object. Keep in your mind, they change. And point two, it changes the form of the verb. It changes the form of the verb, but the tense of the verb remains the same. Present form will not become past form, past won't become past participle, and so on. Remains the same. Right? So it changes the form. It changes the form of the verb, but the tense of the verb remains the same. Verb form will be changed. Verb form will be changed, but the tense remains the same. Alright, my dear students. And third point, a helping verb may be added like am, is, are, was, were, been, etc. with the past participle form. What is past participle form? Nothing but verb form 3. Nothing but verb form 3. And fourth point we have to keep in our mind is that intransitive verbs cannot be expressed in passive voice. Right? What are the intransitive verbs? Intransitive verbs are those which do not take an object to complete its meaning. For example, trees grow. Trees is the subject, grow is the verb. And after grow, we are not needed a word or group of words to understand the meaning of the sentence. It is understood, subject plus verb. So it is intransitive verb. It will not be transformed from active voice to passive voice. I go to school every day. Can we transform from active voice to passive voice? No, we cannot. Right? The sky is blue. Can we transform from active voice to passive voice? No. Right? So there are some intransitive verbs which do not need an object after it to complete its meaning are called intransitive verbs. They cannot be transformed from active voice to passive voice. And fifth one is question words are changed as follows. Who changes into by whom. In the active voice, if there is who, it changes into by whom. If there is whom, it changes into who. And what remains as what. When remains as when. Where remains as where. How remains as where. No change whether they are in the place of active voice or in the passive voice. So then sixth point, change. Personal pronouns change their forms as follows. From active voice to passive voice. Personal pronouns, they change their form as follows. From active voice to passive voice. So I changes into me. I in the active voice changes into me into the passive voice. We changes into us. We changes into us. He changes into his or him. She changes into her. She changes into her. They change into them. You. It remains the same. So these are subjective pronouns. Right? These are objective pronouns and possessive. Isn't it? So therefore here let us go through few examples to explain all these 6 points. Alright. So example 1. The hunter. Listen my dear children carefully. The hunter killed the tiger. The hunter killed the tiger. Hunter is the subject. Killed is verb form 2. Past form of the verb. The tiger is object. The tiger is object. So the subject of the active voice, the hunter, becomes object of the passive voice. Object of the passive voice. So the object of the active voice, the tiger, becomes subject of the passive voice. Subject of the passive voice. The verb form killed, right, changes into killed, right? So auxiliary may be added. We have seen here it changes the form of the verb, but the tense of the verb remains the same. It is remains the same both in a past tense. In simple past tense, tense remains the same. A helping verb. Here, what is the helping verb? Was. A helping verb. A helping verb may be added like is, am, are, was, were, be. Right? So being with the past participle. Past participle nothing but, my dear students, verb form 3. Verb form 3. Right? So the intransitive verbs already have discussed. Now let us see how these question words change from active voice to passive voice with an example. So here one example is here. Who killed the snake? Who killed the snake. So here the snake is the object, becomes the subject. The snake was killed by whom? Who became what? Whom. Right? The question word who changes into whom. Right? Who killed the snake? The snake was killed by whom? Or you can write in different way also. By whom was the snake killed? By whom was the snake killed? Also you can write down, my dear students. So from active voice to passive voice, if you have to transform a sentence, these are the points we have to keep in our mind to change. Not only WH word questions, but with all auxiliaries, right? With all auxiliaries, right? So those like is, am, are, was, were, right? We can also form questions. Dear students, the following table will surely help you to know the changes from active to passive voice. The following table will help you to know the changes from active voice to passive voice. When we want to change a sentence from active voice to passive voice, we need to have grip on tenses and their structure, my dear students. Alright, now we are going to see tense-wise few examples. Right? So, there are mainly 3 tenses and each tense is subdivided into 4. Simple, continuous, perfect, perfect, continuous tense. So, together we have 12 tense forms. Mainly only 3 tenses are there. But activity of the time to be mentioned, we have 12 forms. What are those? With the examples, with their active structure and with their passive form we will go through right now. See, number 1, simple present tense. Its structure is subject plus V1 plus object. So, subject plus V1. Right. When we use third person singular he, she, we add s or es to the main verb. That rule already when we learn tenses, we have learned. He writes a letter. He is the subject, writes is the verb, and the letter is object. So when we change the subject of the active voice becomes object of the passive voice. The object of the active voice becomes subject of the passive voice. So therefore, what is the object here? The letter. Right? So the letter or a letter is written by him. Is written. Is written. The verb form changes. Maybe added auxiliaries, helping verbs we said in previous important rules, but the tense won't change. Tense won't change. Right? So next, another sentence, another tense is present continuous tense. Its structure is subject plus am, is, or plus V4 plus object. So in one example, he is writing. He is writing a letter. He is writing a letter. So therefore, a letter is being written by him. A letter is being written by him. The object of the active voice becomes subject of the passive voice. Right? So it is written in such a way. Present perfect tense. Present perfect tense structure is subject plus has or have plus V3 plus object. So he has written a letter. Subject plus verb plus, right, a object and object. So he has written a letter. So here when we change present perfect tense into passive, voice. A letter has been written by him. Has been written by him. And next one is present perfect continuous tense. Present perfect continuous tense. So example is he has been writing. He has been writing a letter. It has no passive form. Children, we have together 8 forms of tense. Right? In this, we have 12 forms of tense. In this, only 8 tenses can be transformed from active voice to passive voice. The rest other, they don't have the passive form because already be form is present in them. Right? So what are those? We will see here. Present perfect continuous tense. He has been already in active form, writing a letter. So that is why this tense has no passive structure. And coming to the fifth one, simple past tense. Its structure is subject plus V2 plus object. So he wrote, verb form to V2 plus object. So object of the active voice becomes subject of the passive voice. A letter was written. A letter was written by him. And next one, past continuous tense. Its structure is subject plus was or verb plus V4 plus object. So therefore example is he was writing. He was writing a letter. So subject object of the active voice becomes subject of the passive voice, and subject of the active voice becomes object of the passive voice. So he was writing a letter. A letter was being written by him. Being written by him. A letter was being written by him. And the next one is past perfect tense. And its structure is subject plus, had plus, V3 plus object. So therefore here you see he had written. He had written a letter. A letter had been written by him. A letter had been written by him. I hope you are understanding how from the active voice to passive voice that sentence is being transformed or changed. The subject of the active voice becomes object of the passive voice. The object of the active voice becomes subject of the passive voice. The verb changes its form. And be form, auxiliary, am, is, are, was, were, have been, according to the tense, because tense won't change. Right? So, next one is past perfect continuous tense. Example, he had been writing. He had been writing a letter. Right? Subject plus, had been plus, V4 plus object. He had been writing a letter. This tense has no passive form. And coming to the simple future tense. Simple future tense structure is subject plus, will or shall plus, V1 plus object. Subject plus, will or shall plus, V1 plus object. Example, he will write a letter. He will write a letter, referring to the simple future tense. So therefore it is being written into passive form. A letter will be written. A letter will be written by him. A letter will be written by him. And next one, future continuous tense. Future continuous tense. He will be writing a letter. Its structure is subject plus, will be or shall be plus, V4 plus object. Once again, subject plus, will be or shall be plus, V4 plus object. Therefore, the example is he will be writing a letter. will be writing a letter. Will be writing a letter. So it has no passive form. Coming to the next one, future perfect tense. So future perfect tense structure is subject plus will have or shall have plus V3 plus object. Once again, subject plus will have or shall have plus V3 plus object. Example, he will have written a letter. And its passive form is a letter will have been written. A letter will have been written by him. Will have been written by him. Future perfect continuous tense. Future perfect continuous tense structure is subject plus will have been or shall have been. Will have been or shall have been plus V4 plus object. Once again, subject plus will have been or shall have been plus V4 plus object. So therefore example is he will have been writing a letter. Now changing into passive form. It has no passive structure. If you observe here, my dear student, present perfect tense, he has been already is present in active form. So no passive voice. And if you look at here, past perfect continuous tense, he had been writing a letter. No passive form. If you look at future continuous tense, he will be writing a letter. No passive form. And next one, if you observe future perfect continuous tense, he will have been writing a letter. No passive form. What are the tenses have no passive form? Right? Present perfect continuous tense, past perfect continuous tense, and future continuous tense, future perfect continuous tense. These four tenses have no passive form. First of all, to transform a sentence from active voice to passive voice, you need to identify, my dear student, the given statement is in which tense. Is it affirmative sentence or interrogative sentence or imperative sentence and so on. They are in which type of sentences or in which tense. If you are able to find out, surely you will be able to change from active voice to passive voice.